A video game character is often only as good as the tools at their disposal. I mean, after all, that big evil is going to be a lot easier to take down with that 4-foot elemental hyperblade than a dingy frying pan. And so it's very common for titles to offer players the chance to upgrade or unlock new weapons to get the job done more efficiently. These ultimate weapons usually come at a high price though, either requiring the player to take down optional super bosses or spend hours grinding for materials in order to scrape together a recipe for destruction. Of course, it's usually worth all the blood, sweat and tears when the ultimate weapon finally carves the final foe in half like it's a twig. But there are always the rare exceptions that these premium weapons will make an absolute fool out of you, and this is exactly what these 8 entries seek to achieve, making you work your fingers to the bone for hours only to reward you with a weapon or item that's more of a mocking gesture than a mauling gutter plus 10. With this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 8 terrible secret video game weapons that took hours to unlock. Number 8. Poverty Board. Snowboard Kids 2. I know it's a bit of a stretch to start this off, seeing as snowboarding games really don't have weapons per se, but it is as much a leaned upon item for purveyors of the sport as somebody else's sword would be in an adventure game. And quite frankly, if you've ever been hit in the shins by one of these, Jesus, send me to A&E as I'll be moaning about it all afternoon. Throughout the rather stellar Snowboard Kid games, you were able to take your misshapen miner from lofty heights all the way down some ludicrous mountaintop tracks, and as you did, you'd earn currency to upgrade your board or buy new ones. Now, some boards, however, are only unlocked by finishing courses on expert difficulty, which is definitely not a mean feat in itself. In doing so, you'd hope that you'd unlock some truly ace boards, right? Well, you can, but the poverty board is not one of them, as by riding this average stat slider, you'd lose money throughout the race. Every coin you pick up would get sucked into the board, meaning that you'd nearly always finish the race with nothing to your name. As the stats were middle of the road, there was literally no point in using it, and it feels like a slap in the face more than anything else. Number 7. The Giant's Knife. If you're looking for a weapon that is both a giant waste of time and a Goliath-sized error of investment, then the Giant's Knife from Ocarina of Time is most certainly for you. Well, scratch that, this weapon shouldn't be for anyone as it is completely useless. However, I'm sure a lot of us fell foul of the promises of Medi-Goron, who stated that the blade was going to be his magnum opus, the best blade around that would cleave foes in two with ease. And this all fell apart when the weapon literally falls apart after a few hits. You see, what you've done here is basically invest in a shady Kickstarter project that hasn't delivered the goods. We ponied up the dough, waited an excessively long time, finally got the piece of tat that is the Giant's Knife, and just when we developed the concept of even swinging it a bit hard in our minds, it broke. Excellent. Well, you know what, let's just take it back to the smith and get it exchanged for a new one, right? I'm sorry, you're charging me for an inferior weapon? Unfortunately, this is indeed the case, and you'll be suffering from a huge amount of buyer's remorse after waiting so long and working so hard for what amounts to a weapon less deadly than a bloody butter knife. Number 6. The Clank Zapper. Ratchet & Clank Going Commando. The Ratchet & Clank games have always had a brilliant approach to their weapons. Whether they're big or small, deadly serious, or those that look to turn your foe into sheep, they all pack an absolute wallop. However, the only wallop with the Clank Zapper that you'll find is the beating your wallet takes after the massive slap in the face that is this weapon. The upgrade on paper sounds great, as it sees your little buddy Clank help out a bit by firing death lasers at people. Yet, after a few ropes of his spooter, the little bastard goes back to sleep again, and the damage that he's dealt is negligible at best. This wouldn't be so bad if it didn't cost 1 million bolts, meaning that you'll have to grind for hours and hours to even gather the cash just to piss it away on this mess. And to make matters worse, you could only unlock the chance to purchase this in challenge mode, and the first few sections of the game don't even start you with Clank, meaning that it's a massive amount of cash on a gun that absolutely sucks eggs and you don't even get immediate access to. Cheers. No, seriously, thanks. Number 5. Gundell Hell. Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hand. Now this one is such a misfire that it's almost impossible to believe that it made it into the final game. Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hand is a brilliant action RPG for the Game Boy Advance, and thanks to Hideo Kojima being the game's director, it is as bonkers as it is spectacularly fun to play. Using your solar gun to take on hordes of the undead and their evil vampire overlords, the game is such fun that you might end up completing it multiple times, something which you'll actually need to do 4 times in fact to unlock the front runner for worst gun ever in the game, the Gundell Hell, which might look formidable at first with its S rank in both attack and stun, and it does indeed possess a pretty long range, but the problem starts and ends with what element it fires. Dark Elemental has precisely 0 effect on a huge percentage of enemies in the game, meaning that while it will shred some opponents apart like wet bread, you'll feel like a right duck when the beam barely phases anything else. Oh, and if you're trying to upgrade the gun to get around these issues, don't bother, as you can't. Cool. This is meant to be the ultimate weapon, but all it ends up doing is standing out like an ultimate failure. Number 4, the Golden Sword. Minecraft. When you first survive your opening salvo of days in Minecraft's surprisingly brutal world, you might start to grow a little bit more confident. No longer are you legging it inside and praying at night, but are now traversing the world with ease, stocked up to the nines and battering skeletons and zombies with your weapons. Hell, you might even start looking to upgrade your gear cosmetically to show how much you've mastered this world. And you might look at all of that gold that you've agonizingly spent digging up and think, well, you know what? Gold armor definitely looks cool, so what if well, you know what? Don't even think about it. Do not under any circumstances be that player who makes themselves a goddamn golden sword, because you will regret it immediately. Not only is it a mare to find on some maps, but gold in this game is better served being turned into anything else, as in sword form, its soft metal nature means that it has terrible durability and does exactly the same amount of damage as a wooden sword. It'd be a terrible idea in real life, so the fact that it's the same here is kind of refreshing, to be fair. So you know what, just be a normal person like everyone else and build a golden skull temple complete with a throne room full of pigs. Number 3, Monopod, Xenoblade Chronicles. The Xenoblade franchise was one that I enjoyed quite late in the day, only arriving with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Having since dipped into numerous titles across the library, I can definitely see why they've garnered such an impressive reputation. However, when I told my colleagues that I was getting pretty far into Xenoblade Chronicles, they advised me to never, under any circumstances, bother finishing off the Banner the Betrayer questline, as the reward was one of the worst weapons in the entire game. Naturally, I ignored this advice because, come on, when have I ever listened to words of wisdom? And true to their warnings, the Monopod is absolute garbage. It's the weakest physical attack weapon for your weakest party member, and its only saving grace is that it has a really high chance to crit. But you'll never want to put that character in the firing line because they're made of less substance than a bloody ghost. Plus, the battle against Banner is surprisingly tough, and by being so late in the game, it means that you'll have to level grind a lot in order to get the better of this beast. For all of the hours that you've sunk into this game, all you get is a weapon that will likely never see use. Brilliant. Number 2, Excalibur. As joke weapons go, they often don't get much more long-running than the Final Fantasy's Excalibur, a cheap knockoff of the almighty Excalibur weapon that you can also find in different forms across the franchise. Mainly wielded by Gilgamesh, the time-traveling warrior of ages, this weapon is horrendously ineffective, as it will only do 1 HP's worth of damage to whatever enemy is hit with the blade. This is especially annoying when you think you've gotten a free win with Gilgy coming in to bail you out, but then dishes out this chump stick. However, this is nothing to the feeling of paying 150 LP on Final Fantasy XII to unlock the Excalibur for yourself as a weapon, as of course, it only does 1 HP damage. I know what you're thinking to yourself, well that's what you get for buying it, but when the weapon holds a whopping price tag like that, you figure that it's got to do something, right? Enemies outside of a few exceptions only drop 1 LP each time you beat them, so this is going to take ages to scrape together the cash. Well, more fool you for not trusting the evidence shown in other games, because this 1 HP hitter is absolutely useless. If you want the real deal, well, you're going to have to work much harder for that. Ace. And number 1, the Silver Shroud machine gun, Fallout 4. In the world of Fallout, nearly everything that you come across can become a deadly weapon in the hands of the determined or the desperate. And with hundreds of hours of gameplay across the series and so many hidden locations tucked away inside the maps, you'll never be short of things to shoot, stab, or simply nuke to ashes with. That being said, one gun that you should really steer clear from is the Silver Shroud machine gun, which can be found in Fallout 4. The Silver Shroud is a kind of folk hero to the local populace, arriving, much like the mysterious stranger, to see off the the bad lads and shoot crime in the face with their trusty machine gun. After listening to such tales of excitement and adventure, you might even want to pursue the role itself and take part in a rather lengthy series of side quests which can be picked up after listening to the Silver Shroud radio in Good Neighbor. As you progress, you'll be given new equipment to complete the look, and finally, you'll receive this iconic weapon, and it sucks. Seriously, it's just a regular machine gun with a silver skin. No mods, no buffs, that's it. Oh well, back to annihilating foes with a super sledge then, is it? It just doesn't feel the same though. And there we go, those were 8 terrible secret video game weapons that took hours to unlock. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friend, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or swing by Live and Let's Dice. It's my personal gaming channel where I stream every Wednesday and Sunday. But before I go, I just want to detail one thing. We spoke today about things that we spent hours trying to achieve, only to be a bit disappointed with the results. But you know what, my friend, the thing that's actually important about that is that you achieved your goal. In so many aspects of life, we can just plow ahead, keep our heads down, and just not give ourselves a break for the good things that we do. So what I'm going to ask you to do today is look at the things in your life that you have accomplished. Look at where you are today, what makes you great, and just give yourself a bit of a pat on the back for getting here, because you are a massive ledge in my eyes. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.